Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sports Underground, continuing the NFL preview. Right now we're going to move on to the AFC West. Start at the bottom of the AFC West. I've got the Denver Broncos. I think they're one of the 4 or 5 worst teams in the league. Kyle Orton, Brandon Lloyd, about all they have. But I'm going to go 3 wins maybe for these guys.
See, I agree with you to a point. I do think that Oakland is probably the worst team in this division, but you're probably splitting hairs. Mm-hmm. You know, you say 3 wins. For Denver, I say more like 5 and maybe have Oakland at 3 wins, but what's the difference really? Right.
Yeah, they're a horse apiece. Oakland losing Asamoah, a big chunk out of their defense, which sadly was the strength of their team because they have a questionable quarterback in Campbell, a little bit of a running game, no receivers really to even mention here. So you're right, they might be in a downcline, but either way, they're both bad teams.
Yeah, they seem to be losing players quite a bit more than they seem to be gaining, and I question their draft strategies. They don't seem to sign people in free agency and things like that. So it's they've been kind of at a stall for 10 years, it seems like, you know. But
right. Okay, so enough about those 2 teams. Let's move on to second place team in this division. The Kansas City Chiefs, last year 10-6, won the division. More of a fluke, the Chargers lost it than that Kansas City won it. But I know we talked off air a little bit that Kansas City probably 10-6, maybe 2 years down the road, they kind of got there a little ahead of pace last year.
I think so. I think they reached a little bit last year to get that schedule, or get that record, but good for them. Mm-hmm. But I think I view them more as a 500, 8-8, maybe 9-17, depending on how they do. But the difference between 9-7 and 8-8 in that division might be a big deal.
It might be, and they're playing a first place schedule this year, which is probably a little tougher than I'm guessing they played the third place schedule the year before. I'm not exactly sure on that, but it wasn't the first place schedule, I guarantee you that.
Sure.
You know, they got a nice rushing game with Jamal Charles, with Thomas Jones. Matt Castle does an alright job at quarterback, and then Dwayne Bowe on the outside would be their other offensive weapon.
Yeah, I think Matt Castle's efficient enough to be the quarterback in that team. A fun team to watch, tough to play at home. Have some pieces that are important pieces to have in a team that's building towards the future. So, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to put them at, like you said, 8-8, maybe 9-7, could be 7-9, but somewhere
Absolutely,
in that little area.
Injuries would play a big part in that team.
Right, absolutely. So number 1 in the division, the San Diego Chargers. I think clearly the class of this division. I'm looking 11-5, 10-6, outside chance of 12-4, but they're usually slow starters. So you expect them to drop a couple early, they're not supposed to. But offensively, if Ryan Matthews comes around and does anything, with Vincent Jackson, with Antonio Gates, and with Phillip Rivers, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, the sky's kind of the limit for that offense.
A very top-heavy division here, very top-heavy with the Chargers, and expect big things from Phillip Rivers this year. Mm-hmm. A lot of weapons, a lot of choices for him. Great team defensively, seem to be doing the right things. But like you said, it seems like the Chargers every year have that fluke loss. They might lose to a team like San Francisco, Seattle,
Denver,
Oakland.
Right.
Would it surprise you if they lost 1 or 2 games against either Denver or Oakland?
No.
Out of the blue.
Not at all. It would not at all. Last year, number 1 in offense, number 1 in defense, don't make the playoffs. Very, very odd anomaly with that. Never happened in the history of the NFL before. Special teams obviously have to shore that up. And then they lose their defensive coordinator, Ron Rivera, who is now the head coach down in Carolina. So we'll see what Greg Minuski brings to the table as far as a new defense down there, if he changes a lot. Hard to do that with the number 1 defense in the league, though.
Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But yeah, people can always improve, it seems like. But yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Especially in a division like this, they should be able to roll.
So fantasy player from the AFC West, once again a little bit off the beaten path.
Boy, you know, San Diego doesn't really have any secrets. Tough to say anybody from Oakland. I mean, they lost their tight end. You know, everybody knows about Darren McFadden, which do not draft Darren McFadden. I've made that mistake in the past. That's definitely a hands-off player. Someone from Kansas City. I mean, could Thomas Jones have a year that might be
possibly
of value? You know, trying to stay off the beaten path. So, mention some people may not think of, or be like, oh yeah, that guy. You know, everybody knows about the Chargers and their weapons and things like that. But anybody you had in mind?
I'm going to throw out Dexter McCluster. Now, I know they have the two-headed monster with Jones and Charles, but McCluster's kind of a Jamal Charles hybrid. You know, maybe do some Percy Harvin-ish type of stuff with him. Now, you're not going to start Dexter McCluster for 16 games all year long, but you get the right matchup. You know, you can throw him in a week or two. Another name that I'm going to throw out there, probably a little more value as the season goes along, Malcolm Floyd. A guy you don't think about, but with that high-powered offense, Gates is going to get a lot of double team. There's going to be a lot of attention to Vincent Jackson on the other side. Malcolm Floyd probably sitting on a 65 to 70 catch season, anywhere from 800 to maybe 1,000 yards, tops 6-7 touchdowns somewhere in there.
But that's enough, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think McCluster's a good one too. I didn't think of him, but a guy that probably catches the ball a little bit more,
Right.
And plays. I think he plays a big part in the special teams.
He does, and that you know, you don't draft him for special teams. You draft Kansas City, but obviously,
Right, obviously not.
yeah, that would make them much more in the return game. You know, defensively very solid. So yeah, not a bad pick for a defense there to look for Kansas City.
Sure.
So that's going to end the talk about the AFC West. We're going to jump right into the NFC West now. Probably the worst division in football, and I don't think it's close. You want to talk about bottom feeders? You've got Seattle. I don't know if they're going to win a game. They are that bad with Tavares Jackson, who didn't get a fair shake in Minnesota, so he says. So I guess after 16 games, he's going to get his fair shake in Seattle, and he's probably going to get his fair shake right out of Seattle.
Probably. Why would you pick up that guy and start him? Why would you sign that guy to start?
Well, especially when you put money into Sidney Rice, you guarantee Sidney Rice $18 million. What, he's going to block downfield for Marshawn Lynch because he's not going to have to worry about catching more than 40 balls.
Unless Brett Favre's rolling in, I don't think Sidney Rice is the same receiver without Brett Favre.
I don't think so either.
I think he's your second-round draft pick. That's a nice player, but certainly not going to return to that Pro Bowl level that he was with Brett Favre in Minnesota.
Right. So Seattle definitely, I think, the bottom of this division. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and put San Francisco in third. They're one of those teams like Detroit. They should be building, they should be on the uprise, but they never really get there. And with Sam Bradford, the emergence in St. Louis, I think St. Louis is a better team from San Francisco. I'm going to put the Niners on 6 or 7 wins.
Sure.
You know, could be 5, could be 8, but I don't see them being a playoff team or even in contention for this division.
Nope, they probably sweep the Seahawks, split 1-1, maybe with the Cardinals, maybe with St. Louis. But it doesn't seem like San Francisco was just missing something, like some sort of leadership or some sort of...
Well, I think it's at the quarterback position, too.
It is. It just seems like they got a great guy in Patrick Willis, linebacker.
Yep,
fantastic player. But it seems like they're missing. I feel like they're missing leadership or something that could turn that team around pretty quick.
Well, Jim Harbaugh comes in now as the head coach. I think that's the leader that they need up top. He brings back Alex Smith, though. This guy's been a bust. You know, Aaron Rodgers drafted 20-some positions later in the draft than him, and it clearly is, if not one of the best quarterbacks in the league, clearly better than Alex Smith. And I think it's always been in his head that he just has not lived up to that #1 draft pick. And I think it's in his head that he just doesn't know what to do to kind of dig himself out of that hole.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's problems in San Francisco that I think run deeper than the surface.
I think
a lot of what the fans see. But I think moving on next, who wins the division?
I'm going to say the Cardinals do.
Okay.
And the only reason I say that, Larry Fitzgerald's too good of a player. You now have a quarterback who can get him the ball. Last year, I mean, Kurt Warner, when he was there, they moved the offense,
How different of a team was that?
It was different, but offensively, not a lot different. And then Bolden was gone.
The quarterback is the intangible.
Oh, absolutely.
Where you insert a good quarterback,
right.
You got a different team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
which
that,
you can say just about with any team, but I'm just more so with that one than
well, yeah, because they completely fell off the face of the earth. And, you know, a lot of times you can put someone in, like look at Matt Castle in New England. You know, an unproven guy, but Brady goes down, you put in Castle, they still won 11 games. Now, that's pretty high end, I get it, but you don't go from being a playoff team to a team that wins 4 or 5 games just because you lose a quarterback. And you can say Kurt Warner's a Hall of Famer. Kurt Warner had some bad years in the Giants. I think it's all system. So I'm not going to just sit here and tell you that Kurt Warner was the greatest thing that ever played football. But obviously, he worked for the Cardinal system.
I agree. To me, it might come down to the last game of the season between the Cardinals and the Rams. Do I think the Rams are that good? Not really, but I think there's some interesting things going on there. And I'll say it 100 times, that a quarterback that's that good as Sam Bradford, has proved himself in year 1, makes a heck of a difference on the team.